of them. Thank you everyone for joining. We're just going to give it a few more minutes to allow a few more attendees to join, and then we'll start the presentation. On the call today with us on this webinar is Michelle, who is the Associate Director from the Office of Admissions at Florida Poly, and also Shelley, the Enrollment Management Specialist at Florida Poly as well. Thank you all for joining. And Michelle, just to give you a bit of an idea, so today I believe there's going to be a mix of attendees. We will have predominantly our contacts in Africa, so a number of our important agents joining the session. There may also be some students joining the session today, so it's going to be a little bit of a mix, and also some of the team from Gus.
Okay, sounds great. And I did save these as these slides as a PDF for you, James, that I can email that over to you when we're done.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And I'll share them with everyone in attendance today. So what I think we'll do is we'll give it 2 more minutes, just see if anyone else does drop in, and then we can start.
Sounds good.
Okay, good evening all. I'm going to pass you over to my colleagues at Florida Poly. Thank you for joining the session. Michelle, please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, James. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Michelle, and I oversee freshman admission here at the university. So I'm going to be talking with you all just a little bit about the university from our perspective, and that way you can hear how we talk with students and discuss the university and some of the facts and fun things that we share with our students when we are recruiting here in the U.S. But I work predominantly with incoming first-year students, but I do have some information to share as well about our graduate population and a little bit about transfer students, so that if you do have any questions about any of those populations, feel free to ask, but I'll go over all of those populations that you potentially could be working with through the admissions process. So James, is the chat function available, or can people like unmute themselves, or how would you like them to ask questions if they have any?
If there's any questions they would like, please feel free to enter it into the chat box. And then at the end, what we can do is we can go through them and answer any. And if anyone would like to unmute, we can discuss them further as well.
Okay, sounds great. That works for me. So to go ahead and get started, I want to talk with you all a little bit about what the university has been able to accomplish, and this is just in the past year alone. So the slide that you're seeing on your screen is an overview of some of our more prominent rankings from the past year. Florida Poly is a top 40 public engineering university without a PhD here in the US, according to Best Colleges US News and World Report. But we also have a variety of other rankings that you can see that really set the tone for what students are able to receive here at Florida Poly. We are the #1 in terms of lowest out-of-state tuition, and that out-of-state tuition is also the same tuition rate that our international students pay as well. So it is a very affordable option for students that are wanting to come to the US and wanting to get an affordable education. So a little bit in general about the university to kind of set the tone as to what Florida Poly is all about. And we are a my slides must have something going on here with my computer. But we are a small institution. We're currently about 1,400 students enrolled at the university, which makes us the second smallest state university. So here in Florida, if a student's wanting to come and attend a public institution, you're looking at a lot of our sister institutions that have anywhere from 40,000 students up to about 70,000 students enrolled. So being that we are a small institution, it does provide a very different and unique experience for our students. We do have a small classroom experience with an average student to faculty ratio of 15:1 and an average class size of 21 students. So if students get a chance to come visit campus, they can see it for themselves. But physically as a university, we are not built to have multiple hundreds of students in a classroom at a time. Our classrooms are built to have about a maximum of 35 students, and that's including all of our entry-level courses like calculus, physics, English, social sciences, history. Those different courses are set to be a small classroom experience. But talking in general about the university and the type of student that we have here at Florida Poly, we have very academically challenged students in that they've taken challenging curriculum. They have strong GPAs in high school. They have strong test scores in terms of SAT and ACT, and do perform very well in their math and science courses. And so with that strong academic base, partnered with our small campus in terms of student population and the one-on-one attention, one thing that's very big here at the university is hands-on opportunities. So our students are required to complete an internship by the time that they graduated. And so that's something that we get quite a few questions about from our students that are visiting campus or we're talking to when we're recruiting them off of campus at their high school or other virtual events. So just a little bit about that internship. It is required for all of our undergraduate level students. So that includes freshmen. It also includes transfer students. Our graduate students are not required to complete an internship, but it is an opportunity that is open to them if they choose to pursue it. And our students typically do their internship here in Central Florida, but really they can complete that internship up anywhere within the state of Florida. They can complete it outside of Florida. They could complete it internationally, as long as they are fitting certain requirements in terms of the number of hours that they're doing in their internship and what they're doing in their internship, and it's relevant to their field of study, then it can count towards their credit. It's typically done during their junior or senior year. And so we do have a lot of students that decide to take a summer semester to not take courses, but instead focus full-time on an internship during their summer term. And so that is an option for students if they want to do it. But we've had a variety of different companies, large and small. We've had them at NASA, the NSA. We've had them with a variety of other companies that are here in Central Florida because we are quite the hub of tech companies. And so there have been a lot of opportunities around here, Walt Disney World, Universal, but we've also had students that have gone outside of Florida to places in New York City, the Midwest, and Michigan. We've had some on the West Coast, over in California. So there really is a lot of opportunity for our students when it comes to that internship, but it is a huge part of what we do here at the university. Internships are also partnered in part with something we call our senior capstone design sequence. So some of these companies that are listed have actually worked with the university through our senior capstone design sequence. So any of your underclassmen, so freshmen, transfers, those students are going to be required to complete what we call a senior capstone design sequence. And so during their senior year, they're going to have a full year to work with a company. Typically that's here in Central Florida, and to work on a specific project for that company. They'll be applying their 3 years of coursework in that fourth year, that 1 year long capstone sequence, and they'll be able to actually work with those companies directly for 2 semesters and pretty much treat that as a year-long interview opportunity with those different companies. And so that's another great opportunity that we offer for all of our students that typically is very popular and students like to hear about, because the type of student that comes to Florida Poly wants to be hands-on, wants to learn, wants to be very involved in their learning experience. And so all of the things that we do here at the university really does pay off for our students in terms of dividends and employment. So within 90 days of graduating from Florida Poly, 75% of our graduates were hired into tech jobs, so jobs within their field of study. And among the 12 state universities here in Florida, we have the highest median income of $57,000. So our students, being that we are 100% STEM, do have a lot of opportunities in Florida and abroad, but also many of those are very high paying and lucrative opportunities because of the degrees that we offer. And so that leads me to just do a quick overview of our programs of study. I don't want to talk about each of these in depth, but what I do want to mention is just what makes our programs for our undergraduate students different. So we have almost 40 undergraduate programs of study. So these are open to freshmen and transfer students. And these are 4-year Bachelor of Science degrees. So they are 120 credit hours that are spread out over their 4 years at the university. So students typically complete 30 semester hours throughout the course of an academic year here at the university. They can take classes in the summer, fall, and spring. And they can play around a little bit with when they take those courses, as long as they maintain a full-time status of 12 semester hours for their fall and 12 semester hours for their spring. But when it comes to the way that our programs operate, they're not your typical 2 years of general education requirements, which is what a lot of our other institutions here in Florida and in the US will have. You'll have 60 credit hours of general coursework, which is typically your first 2 years, and then you have 60 hours of your core coursework, which is usually your last 2 years. And so students seem to think that you can kind of mess around the first 2 years and then really get down to business your last 2 years of college. That's not what Florida Poly does. So here at the university, we have about 35 semester hours that make up general education requirements. So those are classes like physics with the lab, intro to computation and programming, English courses, humanities, social sciences, and then of course their core math courses, which the minimum math course requirement is Calculus 1 here at the university. So they have those hours. Then on top of that 35 hours, they have an additional group of courses that is going to be additional science and math courses to make sure that they are prepared for the level of curriculum that we have here at the university. Then on top of that, they have their 60 hours that make up their Bachelor of Science program. So whether they're interested in mathematics and in engineering mathematics, or they're interested in business analytics or interested in mechanical engineering. Any of our majors will have 60 core hours that make up the core 60 of the bachelor's degree. Plus, they also have an additional 15 semester hours or so that they generate or that they dedicate to those little bullet points that you see on the screen, and those are called concentrations. So when students are admitted to the university, they're admitted to their program of study, which is their bachelor's degree and their concentration. And I know that that's extremely important, especially for our international students. We do include that information in their acceptance letter so that as they go through the process, if they're applying for an F1 visa and going through the I-20 process, all of that information is readily available to them in their admit letter. But that's just a brief overview of what makes our programs different. They are much more focused in a student's program of study. It focuses a lot more of their time actually in their academic core as opposed to taking those general education courses that they might see at another institution here in the US. All right, so I want to kind of talk a little bit in terms of the undergraduate admissions process. So starting with the cost of attendance, I mentioned that we were the most affordable in terms of out-of-state tuition. I don't know what's going on with my computer here today. But when it comes to the cost of attendance for an international student here at the university, it is about $21,000 per year of attendance. For students that are living on campus, which we highly recommend, we have no formal residency requirement in that we don't require students to live on campus, but we do strongly recommend it, especially for our out-of-state and international students so that they can acclimate to the area a little bit better. But adding in the cost of room and board with an estimate for the cost of books and supplies, we're looking at about $33,000 for the cost of direct cost of attendance. Now, when a student's looking at the university and they are having to complete all of their paperwork for the I-20 and their proof of funds, they also have to have a $4,000 additional cost of just general fees and transportation to also keep in mind to make sure that they have the money to do all the transportation and any additional incidental fees and costs that would come up as a result of living in another country. But that is just the direct cost of attendance in terms of what it costs to the university to attend. So I want to talk a little bit in terms of related to financial aid, what the requirements are in terms of scholarships. So we do provide scholarships for international students. We have specific ones, sometimes for students depending on where they're from. We do offer institutional scholarships for international students, but the majority of the burden of paying for the cost of attendance does come down to the student and any type of private funding that they are able to secure. So our international students typically aren't able to submit the FAFSA, but if they apply early enough, they can be considered for our application deadline for the scholars programs. So that would require them to apply pretty early in their last year of high school. Being that our application opens up August 1st, they would have between August 1st and November 1st to submit that application to be considered for those scholars programs. Okay. So like I just mentioned, our application does open August 1st for every fall term. So for fall of 2022, our application will be opening up this summer. On our website and on the Common App, which I'll talk a little bit about the actual application process here on the next slide. But then we do adhere to the national decision deadline here in the US of May 1st. And so we do ask all of our students, including international students, to make that commitment by then. Mostly for the international students is to make sure that they're able to complete their visa paperwork and have everything in place in order to either enroll in the summer or to enroll in the fall, depending on the term that they're admitted to. Okay, so the application process. So the application process for applying to Florida Poly, we've tried to streamline it as much as possible. We understand that the pandemic has changed a lot of things for students. I know this year I had a student from Brazil who it took him 4 months to get his transcripts from Italy. He had done a year abroad, and it was a headache for him to try to get those documents. So we do try to work with students as much as possible to get their information into the university from our end as much as we can. So the very basics when it comes to a student applying to the university, they can apply through our website. They can also apply through the Common App. So working with students that are applying to a variety of schools here in Florida or just across the US, the Common App is a really great resource for them to be able to apply to one institution or to fill out one application and apply to multiple schools all at once. And so that has been very helpful. And I've seen quite a few of our international students utilizing the Common App this year. It also makes it pretty easy for the students to send us some of their documents through the Common App system. So students have to submit their online application as well as write a personal essay as part of the application. And then we do require a $30 application fee. Students sometimes can qualify for a fee waiver if they have extreme financial need, such as qualifying for an SAT or ACT fee waiver from the institution that they are currently attending for high school. But for some of those supporting documents that students have to submit, we do have to have SAT or ACT scores on file. And I know that this has been kind of a sticking point this year for some students. They haven't had access to taking the SAT or ACT because of the pandemic. But being that we are a state university here in Florida, we must have SAT or ACT scores on file in order to review a student for admission. We are unable to waive that requirement. It's written in our state regulations here in Florida. So every other state in the US is test optional for their state universities, or the state universities can make that choice on their own. But here in the state of Florida, all of the 12 state universities must collect test scores and have those on file for admission purposes. So in addition to those SAT or ACT scores, we do require evaluated transcripts. So for undergraduate students, typically I see those in working with Gus, typically come from AES. Sometimes students do them on their own and submit them through WES or Joseph Silney Associates. But we are required to have those evaluated transcripts unless a student is currently in the US on whichever visa type and they're attending school here at a US high school, then we would not need to have an evaluated transcript for their time that they're here in the US. We also do encourage students to send in up to 3 letters of recommendation. It is not a requirement, but we do strongly encourage them to send those in. And then they do have to provide their proof of English proficiency. Now that can be waived depending on the the country that students are coming from, can also be met through their SAT or ACT scores, or through sending in their TOEFL or IELTS. We can use those to fulfill their English proficiency requirement. So I want to transition here real quick just to give you a little bit of information about the graduate admissions. So when it comes to the programs that we offer for graduate admission, there are 2 Masters of Science programs, and within them there are a variety of tracks for students to choose from. Students can choose a Master of Science in Computer Science, concentrating in computer science solely, or also data science. And then we have our Master of Science in Engineering, which students can focus in electrical, computer, mechanical engineering, engineering management, but also robotics. So there are quite a few options for them if they're interested in the master's level programs. So a little bit about those actual programs. Each program is, and track is 30 credit hours in total. So it is designed to be a maximum of 2 academic years, full-time working towards their curriculum. Most of those programs do have a thesis as part of that curriculum, and it is a thesis 1 and a thesis 2, which means it's 6 total credits, typically over the course of their last year, in which they're completing that thesis, with one caveat that engineering management includes a 3 credit hour project option if students don't want to do the full thesis. So students for the graduate program, though, are able to apply for both the fall and spring semesters, depending on their timing and what their preference would be. Now, when it comes to the cost of attending as a graduate student, the cost is a little bit different. So when it comes to the out-of-state cost, so for international students, the cost is just under $20,000 per year for the full-time tuition and fees. Graduate students do have the option and the opportunity to live on campus, so they also can have that expense, plus then their cost of books and supplies. And then there is that other expense of about $4,000 for those additional travel expenses and other incidentals that come up with being a student here in the US and being away from home. So for a graduate student, they're looking at a cost out of pocket of about $35,000 for the full year, including all of their direct university costs, but also some of those incidental costs that'll come up as a student here at the university. So the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of the admissions side of things is the admissions process for international students that are interested in the graduate program. So just like our undergraduate students, they need to submit an online application. We do not accept the Common App for graduate students, only for our undergraduate student populations, and they also have a $30 application fee. As part of the application process, they do have a variety of documents that they need to send in. We usually encourage our students here to send in 2 letters of recommendation. Our domestic students, we encourage them to send them to admissions@floridapoly.edu. And they also have to submit a statement of purpose as well, detailing why they want to do the program, what it means for them professionally, and really speaking more to themselves. A little bit different than the essay that we require for our undergraduate students. We also do require evaluated transcripts, and the difference with these is it does have to be a course-by-course evaluation for all of their undergraduate coursework. So all of their college credit does have to have a course-by-course evaluation. Typically, those come in from AES, WES, or Joseph Silney as well, just like our undergraduate students. And then we also require proof of English proficiency for graduate students as well, typically through the IELTS or TOEFL. For our undergraduate students, we do use the SAT and ACT to fulfill those requirements. But as a graduate student, they don't have to send us test scores for the SAT or ACT. So typically for their English proficiency, they're going to provide the IELTS or the TOEFL, or potentially have attended their undergraduate coursework here in the US as well. And then we do typically require the GRE, but this year with the pandemic, we've been waiving that in most cases, not all, but in most cases of students applying to the graduate programs, that GRE has been waived. So James, I'm going to look here at the chat to see if there are any questions about the admission side of things. I have some slides that just kind of talk about campus, so I can share with you all a quick picture tour of what the campus is like, so that you all can see what it is and talk with students about it. But I see a couple of questions. So one about the FAFSA. So for international students, so for a non-immigrant student, they are unable to apply and submit a FAFSA. So this is something that we do that's offered to students that either are domestic students, so they are citizens of the US, or at a certain part in the immigration process, if they're no longer considered a non-immigrant, they have their alien registration number, and they're able to go ahead and submit the FAFSA. I included that because I have encountered some students this year that are technically international students at the moment, but they're awaiting their paperwork to be considered immigrants and to get everything situated. So I wanted to mention that in case that is a question that comes up. It is listed on our website, so sometimes international students do ask us if they're able to submit the FAFSA, but unfortunately they are not.
So we do have a question here from Zara. What is the minimum GPA requirement for PG or postgraduate, should I say?
Oh, for the graduate program? Let me see. Is it? I think it sometimes it depends on the program and looking at what classes the students have taken. So if a student's applying to our Masters of Science and Engineering and they want to do the robotics track, but their undergraduate program of study was something like marketing, they wouldn't have the necessary courses to be successful in that program and to meet those prerequisites. So that wouldn't be an option for them, even if they met the standard GPA requirement. I don't know off the top of my head, Shelly, I don't know if you recall, Ryan didn't share that fact with me, so I'm looking real quick if I can see it on our website.
No problem. So I think in most cases for graduate studies, we always advise that the student must have their undergraduate degree in the relevant field of study that they're looking to go into at Florida Poly. I believe that we normally look at about 2.25, I think it was, to 3.25 for the GPA at graduate level. I'm not sure if that is still the case.
Yeah, I know for the GRE before this year, typically if a student was not at a 3.25, then they needed to take the GRE. And if they were lower than 3.25, they had to take it. If they were above a 3.25, typically we would waive the GRE for those students. But I don't see a hard set minimum as to what the minimum GPA is for students applying to the graduate program. But of course, I think that 3.25 or the highest possible, looks better for the application, but really focusing on what you said, James, in that it is a relevant undergraduate program.
Yes, I do see a hand raised. If you'd like to unmute and ask a question, feel free to. Bro Michelle or Michelle, do you have a question for us?
Yes, my name is Michelle Ifayeze. I'm the Managing Director of Intervacites Company Limited in Nigeria.
Pleasure to meet you. How are you today?
Yeah, my question is on application process for undergraduate students. The application fee and then the deposit requirement if the student is admitted. Some of us that are agents, most of our students may not be, because definitely there's some of the schools in the United States that used to waive application fee for the applicants. So most of our students also do the same. They always some of their friends got admission without paying application fee. So can application fee be waived for agents?
So so I know from our perspective, typically application fees for graduate students aren't as easily waived. We have certain policies on our end that require us to document when students qualify for a waiver. And that's why for undergraduate students, we accept SAT, ACT, NACAC fee waivers. So when it does come to a student requesting a fee waiver, we try to work with students as much as possible, but typically it's more difficult to waive application fees for an international student.
Okay, thank you very much. Then the deposit requirement, the advance deposit requirement, if the student is admitted, how much?
Yeah, so once a student commits to the university, it's a $200 enrollment deposit that gets paid online.
$200.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is great. That is good. Then must the student submit a statement of accounts from the financial institutions to show the ability to pay tuition fee prior to issuance of I-20 forms?
So that is done as part of the process. So students will be academically accepted first, and once they've completed the academic acceptance, then we would process the required documents with yourself and your students to move them on to the I-20 stage. Once that's been approved, then we will request the $200 deposit. Once that's paid, then the I-20 will be shared with yourself and the student.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for your time. Was there any other questions from the group?
So it looks like Zara has another question about the GRE. So since the GRE is exempted, this means we'll accept the students on a 2.5 GPA or above. It's not a guaranteed acceptance if students meet that, the GPAs. It's possible that a student could be admitted. The faculty do go through and review the application for graduate students. So for undergraduate students, there's an admissions committee that meets and reviews them for admission. But for graduate students, that does go through our graduate chairs. So they're the ones that would be making that determination. So it'd be up to them if they would be willing to admit someone with a 2.5 GPA.
And obviously in those sort of cases, you know, we can work with yourself and the student to build the strongest profile when submitting to Florida Poly.
There's another question. Yeah. Do you see that one, James?
So students can provide work references. So perhaps if a student, I know we've done this in the past where students maybe graduated, you know, quite a significant amount of time ago and had potentially a lower GPA, we can request that Florida Poly reviews the application, bearing in mind their work experience. We would obviously need references and their CV to, you know, match that experience.
And the same thing can go for undergraduate students as well. So freshmen or transfers that are applying to just our Bachelor of Science degrees, maybe their test scores, their SAT or ACT isn't as strong. They can provide that additional information to us directly and send us, you know, whatever information or share that with you all to then share over to our team and encourage them to share as much information because we're looking at them to determine if they're going to be a great fit for our institution. And then I do see a question about graduate student scholarships. That is one thing that Ryan did not share with me. So James, I don't know if you, Ryan, have talked about graduate scholarships.
Of course. So just to touch on Michelle's last point, obviously with regards to, you know, obviously the whole pandemic situation, we do know that students have probably maybe struggled over the last year if they're studying online. So if there are cases where people have struggled, you know, you can make us aware of them. You know, we can work with obviously Florida Poly. With regards to scholarships for graduate students, there are scholarships available. It is GPA based. What I could do is, Eric, I think you have the details on the scholarships, but it's between 15 to 20% average for graduate students, depending on their GPA.
Yes.
Is there any other questions regarding the admissions, or would you like, should we proceed with the, a little bit more about the campus?
I'm looking at the chat and I don't yet see anything popping up.
If anyone would like to unmute, feel free to just unmute and ask any questions you might have. I think we
Hello, how are you
hi,
all?
Zara.
I'm sorry, I'm not showing my face because I was just opening my fast and, you know, doing a lot of stuff while listening to the call as well. So I just, you know, just wanted to make some things clear here. I understand that we do not have a set CGPA, but then, you know, every case to case is different and I completely understand that. However, do we have a certain limitation? I understand academically challenged students would be coming to Polytech, but because we're, you know, exempting GRE, can we put a bar on it or like somehow a scale so that it's a lot easier for us to negotiate that to students?
In terms of for the graduate students,
Yes.
that's a fabulous question. I will have to check in with Ryan to see what the faculty are looking for, and kind of what they're seeing. So James, if I can chat with Ryan and then follow up with you, can you pass that along to everyone? Just kind of some more distinct parameters as to what the chairs are looking for in the incoming students.
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to share that with the team.
Okay. Unfortunately, Ryan couldn't join us on the call today, but I'll follow up with him, if not this afternoon, tomorrow, and get that information so that it does make it a little bit more clear as to talking with the student, what is a viable option for what they can expect in the admissions process.
Perfect, Michelle. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other questions in the chat box. If perhaps we go on to a little bit more about the campus, Michelle? And then if anyone has any questions, they can drop them in at the end as well. Or if anyone becomes brave enough, you can unmute at any time.
Okay, so wanted to talk a little bit through our campus because, like I mentioned a little bit before, the hands-on experiences are very important to our students. And it's a huge part of what we want our students to do while they're here. We want them to come in and explore and experience everything that is Florida and Florida Poly. So our flagship building is the Innovation Science and Technology Building, or the IST, and that is a picture of this building. It is designed by Santiago Calatrava. It is an award-winning building. It is known and renowned internationally for its design, and this is where students get to go to class on a daily basis. It is composed of common spaces, and I would like to note that all of these photos were taken pre-pandemic. So no, our students are wearing masks on campus. Social distancing guidelines are being followed. This is just a photo from, I believe it's about 2.5 years ago, because I recognize a few of the students in the pictures that have since graduated from here. But the IST building on its second floor is a big open space, like an atrium, where students are able to socialize, work on homework, get tech help if they need help from our IT office, and study and access their faculty. So in the background of this photo, in the far back, it's hard to make them out, but there are white doors along the side, and those are faculty offices. So when our students are here on campus, they're able to connect with faculty, to get advising, to have a mentor that is readily available and easily accessible for them. And that is one of the huge selling points of the university. As I mentioned, when talking about the just general profile of the university, we do have a small class size. And so students are able to get to know their faculty. They are in a classroom that is set up just like the one in the picture, where there are maybe 4, maybe 5 rows of chairs. All of the classrooms have a view of the campus and the retention ponds that surround it. And students are able to be in a very open and welcoming environment, while having that small class size, that one-on-one faculty attention. So in general in the building, the second floor, like I mentioned, was the atrium, the open space. The first floor is what houses all of these classrooms, as well as the lab spaces that we currently have for our students. And those lab spaces are open to students. So whether it is an undergraduate student, so a freshman that wants to apply and is interested in studying autonomous vehicles, or it is a graduate student that is wanting to do their master's in the robotics program. All of our labs are open to our students, regardless of where they are in their program. There's training available. There are resources available for our students to make sure they know how to utilize the different technology that we have on campus. But all of our lab spaces, again, are open for students to utilize. And that is something that is a great selling point for Florida Poly, because I talk to students all the time that are looking at institutions where you have to be a graduate student in order to do research. Our undergraduate students can do research, and definitely our graduate students are conducting research. So that's a brief overview of the IST building. Again, that is our main academic facility, but we also have other resources here on campus, like our Student Development Center. So this is our leisure building. This is where students, as you can see, can swim laps. We have a junior-sized Olympic swimming pool and have different clubs and organizations that are central from this building, and everything that student life pretty much comes from what we call the SDC. In that facility is also our weight room. So if students are interested in physical fitness, that is an opportunity for them. I'm also really excited to announce that we just launched a men's lacrosse team here at the university. So students do have an opportunity to play lacrosse, and we're in the process of launching a new women's soccer team. So they are not competitive at the level of like a Division I, NCAA, but they are going to be more of a local type of group. Our lacrosse team just traveled this past weekend up to Georgia Southern University to play them in lacrosse. Next year, they'll be playing schools like the University of Mississippi, University of Florida, and a variety of other schools in the southeastern part of the United States. So there are quite a few opportunities for our students to come and be very focused on their education, but also be able to have some of that campus life and involvement that many of them are looking for. And so that's all great, and I love talking about campus, but I really wanted to talk about our on-campus living because we get a lot of questions, at least I do get a lot of questions from the international freshmen that I serve asking about living on campus. What is it like? What amenities are available? And so I'm really excited to show you all on-campus living because this is available for graduate, transfer, and first-time in college students. And so for campus living, again, it is not required, but it is strongly recommended. And one of the great perks for living on campus is that there are palm trees everywhere and there's lots of outdoor space. So this picture is a picture of one of the outdoor grills that students have access to. This outdoor grill overlooks our campus swimming pool that is available for students that live on campus. We actually have 2 on-campus swimming pools. So students do enjoy taking advantage of the warm weather year-round to utilize that. So it is a great opportunity for students to socialize and just enjoy the Florida sunshine. But actually within the residence halls, students have a couple of different setups to choose from. So this picture is one of our single bedroom setups. So for graduate students and transfer students and freshmen, they have an opportunity that when they apply to live on campus, they can request a single bedroom. It is not guaranteed, but it is an opportunity. If they apply soon enough, they may be able to get a single room, whereas our returning students have the priority when it comes to having a single bedroom on campus. Otherwise, our incoming, specifically freshmen and transfer students, are in a 2-bedroom setup that has 2 double beds or 2 double rooms where there are 4 students split between the 2 rooms, and then those 4 students share their own bathroom. There is no community style living, which is kind of the traditional horror story image of college life, at least for me when I was going through college, having to live in a community style residence hall. Ours is much more of a resort luxury style student living. So while we have the rooms for students on campus, within the residence halls, there are also a variety of different study lounges available. So this is just one of our study lounges. It has a long table, it has a variety of chairs. Students like to use the windows for writing notes and collaborating using Post-it notes, signs, whatever it is that they need to study and be successful. And so within our residence halls, it is set up so that students have a little bit more of an independent living space. But then there are a variety of different community kitchens. There are study lounges and other community spaces for students to utilize so that they can come together as a campus community living in the residence halls. So that's just a little bit about living on campus. And the last thing I want to show you in terms of campus is something that's not yet done, but it is in the process. So this is a rendering of our new Applied Research Center, as we are calling it, the Engineering Research Center. This is a 90,000 square foot research facility that should be open by the end of spring 2022. And it is going to more than double our research space. So even though this is a rendering, this is pretty accurate in that on the left-hand side of the photo is the IST with all of the retention ponds and lakes around it. And then the ERC, the Research Center, is the white building on the right-hand side. And so this is a picture of it from December. They are moving very quickly. We have some different funding that's hopefully coming through. If it does not come through, then what will happen is this building will be complete on the first floor, and it will be open this November for students to start using it. But hopefully everything works out and that funding and everything with the pandemic ends up smoothing over. And if that happens, then come next spring is when the entire building, the first and second floor, will be complete. We're very excited for the additional lab space that this provides. It provides an entire Capstone lab for our students, a 10,000 square foot makerspace lab, as well as additional teaching labs that will be used for teaching and student research as well. So we're very excited about the opportunities that are going to be coming from this facility. So that is just a quick overview of the physical campus. Were there any questions? I don't see any in the chat, but were there any questions about the physical campus, what we offer for students, what some of those amenities are that we offer?
I'm sorry, I have a question, but it's not regarding the campus. By the way, it's really nice to look at. So I have a question regarding scholarships. Now, when we talk about scholarships, we do have the GUS discount, which is up to 20%, right? So these scholarships that you mentioned, they're going to be separate. That means this is other than the discount that we're offering?
Potentially, yes. So they're not offered to every student, but there is a handful of students that everyone are admitted, review for potential scholarship opportunities, and based off of their application file, may be receiving one of those institutional scholarships, and it would be in addition to whatever they're receiving from GUS, is my understanding.
Correct, from our side.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Was there any questions with regards to the on-campus accommodation? I have had the pleasure of visiting the campus. It is as amazing as it looks.
And you'll have to come back, James, because whenever the ERC is open, you'll have to see it because it's beautiful. I was able to go in and do a hard hat tour about a month ago. Breathtaking. I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks amazing just from the photos alone. I am very much missing the Florida sun here in not so sunny UK. If there's no questions about the accommodation, I don't know if you have, if you want to go on, Michelle.
So I wanted to see if there were just any questions in general. So not just about campus, about any part of the admissions student process. Kind of talked about admissions and then campus, but anything else that I can shed more light on for you?
If there's any questions, please feel free to unmute your mic. We'll be happy to go through anything you might like to discuss today with regards to Florida Poly, the admissions process, questions about the programs.
Hi, Michelle. This is Deepraj here from Global University Systems. I'm the Business Development Manager in India. And today I was at a fair for, one of the biggest agencies in India. And I was talking to students and talking about Florida Poly. So they had a question, about TAs and RAs. Now, can you tell me, how does it work at the university? So I believe, the answer that I gave them was, if it is, like a full-fledged university with a PhD, the PhD students are mostly involved in RAs and TAs. So since at Florida Poly, we don't have a PhD, program, are those RAs and TA programs allotted to master's students?
Yes, so we do have a select number of teaching assistant positions or graduate assistant positions that are available to students. So that is an opportunity. We also do allow for students, whether they're undergraduate or graduate, they could apply to be a resident assistant on campus. So if they were interested in working for the university, but overseeing a residence hall floor, they could be involved in the residence life. And as part of being an RA, it's a little bit different in that they do receive their cost of their room for free. So it does save them on the room and board costs to attend the university. But typically students that are entering first year into the university aren't able to be an RA. It's usually after their first year at the university, they can apply to work as part of the residence life staff. But it is an opportunity for them depending on what their status is for working on campus.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
And I'll also mention we do offer other types of on-campus employment for students. I know myself, I previously had two international students work in my office. They were both from Brazil. They were able, with their visa status, to work on campus while they were enrolled. So they worked for me here in the admissions center for about a year, and then they actually ended up being offered research opportunities as undergraduate students to go work with faculty and to do undergraduate research. So that is an opportunity for students if that's something that they're interested in, to really network on campus. They can meet faculty, talk with other students, and get connected to some wonderful opportunities that are here for our students.
I think it's important to mention that a lot of the professors at Florida Poly are very well known within the industry. They have some very much forward thinking and really leaders in the fields that they offer to students. So,
yeah, James, sorry about that. So
okay.
students here in India, like they are very interested to know how much do they pay per hour. So is it the standard, like $10 per hour, or can students expect more for on-campus and on-campus employment?
I'm sorry, say that. So you were asking about how much it costs per credit hour?
No, sorry. So we still talking about on-campus employment and how much do these jobs pay? So that's
Gotcha.
Also...
Yeah. So here at the university, our students that are just employed in a student position, whether they're working here in the Office of Admissions, they're working in our IT help desk, those typically pay around $10 per hour. So in US dollars for those, and students while they're enrolled can take or can work a maximum of 20 hours per week here at the university. That is a rule for our students so that they are still academically successful and not overloading themselves in part-time employment when they should be focusing on their studies. Now, when it comes to different research opportunities, sometimes those are grant funded, so the pay can vary. It might be a stipend for the semester. It might also be semesterly, assuming that they work so many hours per week. And then when it comes to the GA or TA positions, I don't recall the specific dollar amount that they receive, but for like a graduate position, they would receive a stipend and money towards their scholarship to attend the university.
No, thank you, Michelle.
Hi, my name is Gloria. I have a question concerning like break. If a student is on break, are they allowed to work? How many hours are they allowed to work during the break period?
So go ahead, James.
Go ahead, I was going to say, I think generally international students aren't able to work during their studies. Obviously, for graduate assistantship roles on campus, it is possible. But sort of during the summer holidays, I don't believe it is possible. Michelle, please, if you'd like to elaborate.
So if students are taking classes over a summer term, if they are enrolled in taking courses, then they would be able to still work. And that's what my students were able to do. They took some summer C classes so that the entire summer they could still work in the office part-time while taking their classes. But I have had students in the past that weren't able to work in the office over a summer because they weren't currently taking courses for that term. So they weren't able to just be on campus for the summer without having a course on their load.
Okay, thank you.
And then I see that there is a question about the IELTS, and I'm looking up.
It's a 6.0, isn't it, total for the IELTS, I believe?
Where it's trying to find my document that is my cheat sheet that I keep on hand. It's extremely helpful where I have all of our international student guidelines and everything saved on it, and now I'm unable to find it. But I think you're right, James. I don't know where it went. But I'm gonna find it and confirm.
No problem. I believe it's a 6.0 total score.
It's 6.0.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron.
Yes, yeah.
And then obviously an important thing to remember is for international students studying at Florida Poly, obviously all the courses taught at Florida Poly are STEM programs. So once a student obviously graduates, they would be entitled to the normal 1 year post-study, the OPT. And then in addition, because it's a STEM course, they would also be able to apply for the 2-year extension as well.
And we do have so in our office, we handle the onboarding, the admissions part. We do have an international student services that also is here for students as a resource for them. As they are going through the enrollment process, they're helping them send all the documentation for the I-20 request form, sending them everything to make sure that they're ready to get their paperwork completed and then enroll at the university. So at that point where a student does pay their enrollment deposit, that is when our international student services really kicks in to help that student and make sure they have everything in line for when they'll be flying into the US, when they'll be moving in, and just making sure that everything is set up for them to have a smooth transition to the university.
And obviously one other thing to mention is that we do still have time for any students applying for this fall. It is important that obviously you're working with Eric and the team at Gus and also the team at Florida Poly. If you are interested in applying for this year, we have roughly about 2 months left really to complete your application. Obviously with the pandemic, I would urge you and your students to apply as soon as possible, just to make sure there's enough time to process your visa, go to the embassy and travel to the US. We do know things are changing very quickly globally. So the sooner we get your application, the sooner we can assist you. Is there any further questions for today?
So I have a question regarding the pandemic. So if a student happens to get an admission, I know it's mandatory that you have to quarantine if you get to the US, and if a student have like in-school accommodation, so is the school gonna provide like a different like accommodation for them to quarantine, or how is that gonna be? Like what's gonna happen if they have to come in for study at that point in time?
So I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you asking if a student isn't able to come in at the start of the term or has some type of holdup?
I think it's with regards to students.
You know how some student can actually like pay for accommodation in school, right? So let's assume that I got an admission and I paid for accommodation for the school hostel. So if I'm supposed to come into the US, right, I have to quarantine for certain period. So is the school gonna provide a place that I'm gonna be quarantined, or like how is it gonna be since I paid for school accommodation at that point in time? Like, am I required to pay for a different accommodation to quarantine for the 14 days, or am I, or is the school gonna provide a place for me to quarantine for the time being?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so on campus here for students that are living on campus, we have quarantine rooms that are here in our facility. So if a student does come in, whether it's here in Florida, out of state or internationally, and would need to quarantine, they would use our quarantine rooms here on campus. For students that are coming in internationally, just in general, typically our fall move-in is set to be August 21st. If something were to change and based off of flights and travel arrangements, a student wouldn't be able to fly in for the 21st. Maybe they had to come in on the 19th of August instead. Our residence hall will work with students to see if we can move up their move-in day for them to be on campus. If that's not possible, then students in that instance would have to pay for their own hotel accommodation before they'd be able to move into their residence hall room here on campus. But we do try to work with students as much as we can to make that a smooth transition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So if there's any more questions, please feel free to raise your hand, write them in the chat box. We're here with obviously the team at Florida Poly, so this is the best time to get as much information as possible. Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes if anyone else, if there's no further questions. Thank you very much for your time today, Michelle. And Shelley.
You're welcome.
We do have a question. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Is there any bespoke package for students applying to in your university? Maybe convention when the sponsor pass on and the student has already paid for all his fees, tutor fee, and all those on, and the sponsor pass on. Is there any bespoke package that your university can help for such students?
I'm sorry. Yeah, apologies. I was about to say, I think we were about to say the same thing. Your line was cutting out a little bit there, so I don't think we quite caught your question completely.
Okay, let me come again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm trying to say here is that, is there any bespoke package for students in your institution? For example, when the sponsor of such particular student pass on and the student is stranded to pay some fees when he's already in the US, is there any way you people can help such students at any package for such students?
Okay, I think I understand. I think, you know, any international student traveling to the US would need to be secure with their finances. If there's a possibility of their sponsor passing away, I would advise that they didn't travel until they had their finances resolved first. I hope that helps. Do you have a student at the moment in the US that is looking to study at Florida Poly? Perhaps you can reach out to myself and Eric after this and we can discuss any particular cases that you have at the moment.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
So, sorry. So I just want to ask, so you guys don't have like a payment plan, like in case where a student studied like first or second year and in their third year, they're unable to pay their fees and they actually want like a payment plan where they can pay like as they go. Do you guys have anything like that, like a payment plan?
So when students are here at the university, they do have an option. They do have to pay semesterly. So all of the fall fees are due on one date. All of the spring fees are due on another date. Students do have an option to work with an office here on campus called Student Business Services. If they have an issue of making one upfront payment right at the beginning of the semester, they can maybe spread that out over a couple of payments throughout the term. But unless they paid up their entire due bill at the end of that term, they would not be able to register and continue moving forward with their enrollment. It would also be similar if they got to a point that in a current semester where a student hadn't paid any of their bill, they would be potentially, you know, receiving some negative consequences for not paying the fees in line with the billing payment setup that they had worked out with the university, that potentially they would be out of status and would have some issues with their visa if they weren't making those payments in a timely manner.
Thank you. That makes sense then. Thanks.
Okay, well, I think that may be all the questions for today. And Michelle, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for hosting this session with us. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to myself and Eric. We'll be happy to answer any questions that we can do. And if there's anything we need to refer to the team, we will. Michelle, again, thank you for your time. And obviously everyone in the call, I will share a copy of the presentation that Michelle ran through today, and also a copy of this recording, so you can either go through it again if you maybe joined a little bit later. And, you know, thank you for all of your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a lovely evening all.